Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast for Super Bowl 58. Niners and the Chiefs squaring off in Vegas this Sunday. Mario and I get into all the nitty-gritty for this game. We're also going to break down some interesting draft stuff that we've seen come across the wire over the course of this last week. But mostly, this is the Super Bowl preview show. Let's rock. Welcome on in. This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, John McKechnie. That is Mario Puig. This is our Super Bowl preview podcast. There are many like it, but this one is ours, and therefore keep listening. We got some odd, weird takes that you've come to expect from Mario and myself over the years, and of course over the season. Mario, how you doing now that we had the week off last week as far as football action to digest? Are you hungry? Are you ready for more this Sunday?
No, I like it like last week for a little while, not all the time. It's just season fatigue, doing the content grind the way that we do it makes it an intense 8-month stretch or so, and particularly now that there are two teams that I don't actually care about at the end, I'm just kind of like looking for the skip button. Even I don't know, not fast forward. I'd like to skip, and can't. Trapped. We gotta wait, and it's I'm antsy, I guess, is what I am. I just kind of want to get past this and bury it, forget it.
I'm excited. I think that this is all told the two best teams in the NFL this year. I know the Chiefs didn't necessarily show it the entire way, but once the postseason began, I think it's been pretty clear that it's not too dissimilar from like the height of the Patriots dynasty, where it's like they could sleepwalk a little bit at times. Garnering the questions like, "Oh, is the Patriots dynasty over?" Not that people were saying that about the Chiefs necessarily, but people were starting to question if this was a down year for them. Like the lack of pass catching weapons, obvious ones outside of the emergence of Rashee Rice, obviously Travis Kelce kind of having a down regular season compared to what we're used to. There were questions about them, but they've been certainly answered over the last month or so, and that they are obviously very formidable going into this game. What do you think of the spread being what it is, where it's settled in? I think that we're probably at the last of the line movement, but we're seeing it as Kansas City as 2-point underdogs in this one. They are garnering 63% of the money on the spread over at DraftKings. This line opened up as the Niners -1. That's where I got it personally. We can unpack that a little bit later. It has bounced around a little bit to 1.5, and then ultimately settled in at this Niners -2 number.
Yeah, and the bigger bets are going on the 49ers. So that in the past has oftentimes been a pretty good predictor of who actually covers and wins. And I hope those guys who are putting the bigger bets, or I hope there's maybe it's all just a bubble driven by Silicon Valley doinks who have way too much like tech money, and maybe after inflating causing the bubble with like sports cards during the pandemic, maybe this is their new thing for these couple of weeks anyway. But short of that, there might be reason to think that like people who have a history of winning on sports betting are primarily putting big bets on the 49ers. So as far as why they would do that, I don't know if there's clearly, I don't know of any, stat-based reason to assume that the 49ers are at a clear advantage here, but some collection of people have made that determination, and that they're putting down more money per bet. So that's concerning to me. I'm still going with the Chiefs, but if it were to go wrong for the Chiefs, I guess you might look at this 49ers setup similarly to like what the Tampa Bay team was, which is to say, the better defense of the two teams and a good enough and loaded enough skill position offense, loaded enough offensive line offense to where it didn't matter that the Chiefs had the better quarterback in the game. And then the Chiefs kind of got, bullied in that contest. Maybe the 49ers are the physical sort of, dominant defense to bring that same sort of challenge to the Chiefs. And I guess the way I would call this a different scenario than that is I think the Chiefs defense is better this time by quite a bit, actually. Not better than the 49ers. I mean, better than the Chiefs defense of the Tampa Bay Super Bowl instance.
Right.
And I guess you would also say the 49ers defense is probably a little better than that Buccaneers defense, but that Buccaneers defense was really tough. It's easy to forget. It wasn't, this year's Tampa Bay defense. And the Chiefs defense was not, in my opinion, particularly close to the level it's at now. So if those people are betting on the 49ers under the reasoning that it's the, more or less a replay of the Buccaneers game, I think that would be where the main difference is for me. Is it's basically the Chiefs as a pass defense in particular are probably close to top 5 or something like that in the NFL this year.
Yeah, it's great. A combination of great personnel and really good scheme. I think, that it's hard to really describe this or point to it so often, because oftentimes a great coordinator will ultimately, be a head coach, but before too long. But, Steve Spagnuolo has basically garnered this reputation of being a great big game defensive coordinator, from his time with the Giants, and then obviously now with the Chiefs over these last few years. I think I compare it a little bit to last year's Super Bowl, really, in the sense that when you really look at this game from, just a zoomed out point of view, you say one side, probably the better roster, better team, 1-53 or 1-22, however you want to count it. But the other team has Patrick Mahomes. That's pretty much where I landed on things, and that was the kind of prevailing narrative for the Eagles-Chiefs game last year. And I think that you could apply that similar logic this year to the Niners as to whether the Niners are actually better, are going to be a tougher matchup for the Chiefs than the Eagles were. But that was a crazy game. I mean, we saw an over-under in that game at 50. There ended up being 73 points scored in that one, something crazy like that. This one, the defenses are expected to be a little bit more on the side of having the advantage with the over-under being set at 47.5. But that's where I land on it a little bit more so. But I do like the Buccaneers season comparison. But yeah, basically it's really, really good team versus Patrick Mahomes and a really good team.
And even though he was at the end of his career, obviously, Brady was still a quarterback who not only could throw it 40 plus times a game, but generally did. Like, that Buccaneers team was specifically built to throw the ball a lot. And it's not bad that the 49ers are built to run the ball. But as far as finding similarities in that Buccaneers game, another difference that I could point out is that whereas if Tom Brady needed to throw the ball 45 times, it's like, no problem, Buccaneers can play that game. If Purdy needs to throw it more than 30 times, he's into hazardous territory right there, in my opinion. I just think that as much as people look at like the touchdowns per pass and stuff like that, and they just sort of prorate it, and they're like, oh, if he threw it 40 times, he threw like 5 touchdowns a game. I'd pose the question, like, well, why don't you think they do that every week then? And maybe that they don't do it every week indicates that, like, while yes, they're scoring touchdowns at a blistering rate, any failure to do it, i.e. any scenario where they would end up throwing more passes because they're not scoring as quickly, could also be one where they start turning it over, throwing incomplete passes that don't happen in the current structure. So Purdy's success is dependent on that structure, in my opinion, whereas Tom Brady was a player who didn't need any cover at all.
So let's start there. Let's start with the Niners offense. We'll break it down this way. We'll look at what to expect when the Niners have the ball, what to expect when the Chiefs have the ball, and then get to our predictions from there. But leading things off, I mean, I think one of the big takeaways from the AFC Championship game was, the Ravens didn't test the Chiefs' run defense, which is if there is a weak point on that defensive unit, it's against the run. Do the Niners make that same mistake this week, or do you think McCaffrey is really heavily involved here?
Right. the 49ers are a run first offense, and the Ravens are generally thought of as the same, but I think it's pretty clear that the Munkin scheme was not run first. It was more like, I guess you could call it pragmatic in that game. That one game, they didn't run the ball at all, of course, and so they weren't pragmatic there. That was what if they weren't going to lose eventually for other reasons, like they might have buried themselves right at the outset by refusing to go to a second carry for Gus Edwards after 15 yards. The 49ers, they're more run heavy than the Ravens, in my opinion. Like the Ravens run a lot incidentally out of having like Lamar Jackson handle the ball so much, but the 49ers always run the ball. If they throw the ball 40 plus times, it's like they give up 14 points in the first quarter. So short of that, they are going to run necessarily. It's like the Ravens can run a lot. The 49ers always do. So McCaffrey, I would say, gets to 30 carries in this game, regardless of what happens otherwise. Like I think Shanahan knows that if you can put the ball, if you can make the calculus for the 49ers offense, the Christian McCaffrey on the ground versus a at best average run defense, one that might be below average, you want to make that scenario take up as much of the calculus of the game, or at least you don't want the alternative of Brock Purdy versus Snead and McDuffie taking up a huge part of the pie. It's like you want the if there's a pie and you're just cutting up parts of it as the usage of the offense. You want McCaffrey versus the run defense of the Chiefs to take up as much of it as possible, and you don't want to test your luck, unnecessarily. And I think that's what they would be doing if they threw it too many times. So I think also the Chiefs aren't again great against the run, so it's as much as the 49ers need to run the ball primarily, run it often and run it well. It's also a favorable setup for doing that. Like there's no, they have the additional reason of like, well, it's just practical to do in this case because it's the yards are just right there. Take them.
So looking at just like kind of like a quick tangent for this week when it comes to the 49ers, have you seen the hubbub, the hand wringing about the quality of their practice facilities in Vegas this week?
I saw. I have no idea what's going on though, and maybe do you know for sure what the details are? Because I don't remember any story like this, and I would say if their accusations or if the way they are describing things, if it's true, it does seem like a pretty open and shut case of like pretty substantial negligence, and maybe to the degree that there's like damages owed, but I don't know. The whole story is weird to me.
Yeah, like on the one hand, things should be in tip top condition for teams preparing for the Super Bowl. Like full stop. Like I think that's completely reasonable. But you would think that UNLV could hold up that end of the bargain. On the other hand, the more callous side of me says UNLV practiced on that field and they made it all the way to the Mountain West Championship game. So,
but I don't know. Maybe no intended to the field after November or something like that. Maybe it's just been getting rained on and possums living in there, things like that. But to be serious, I didn't look at any of it. Was there was there basically a point where did the 49ers have a legitimate point?
I think like that there was even discussion about them like going back to Santa Clara to practice type of thing. Like the field was like really soft apparently, and Vegas being what it is, as dry as it is, I think anytime that it rains, it kind of messes things up. And I believe that was the case this week. I think there were some puddles on the field and stuff like that. So I mean, it in all seriousness, it sounds like kind of a JV setup for a team getting ready for the Super Bowl. But no one's really going to like lend any credence to that. Like once the game actually kicks off, I wouldn't think. But I don't know. People were freaking out about the field in Arizona, the actual game field last year too. So just more turf talk, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll probably just try to not learn any more about this.
Okay, fair enough. But let's get back to the Niners offense. So again, we're talking about distributing as much as they possibly can that makes sense to McCaffrey, and to me that I think is the optimal way for them to go. I kind of flippantly mentioned last week that I did like McCaffrey as the MVP, but you kind of smartly pointed out if the Niners are to win this game, narrative city, that it's going to be hard to not give it to Purdy, but I think McCaffrey might have a big enough game to where.
I think that's being a little generous, if I may be pedantic for a moment. Like
Please.
I don't think it's hard to not give the award to Purdy. I think there's a lot of political pressure to do
Right.
it, and
I mischaracterized, but same
oh
idea.
no, you're putting it fairly. I think it takes mental gymnastics. It takes dishonesty, actually, to say Brock Purdy is more important to the 49ers offense than Christian McCaffrey is. But there is a reason the running backs don't matter narrative sticks and gets such a friendly reception from mainstream media, which is that it is fundamentally anti-worker, and there will always be there will always be jobs paying in media to say like these people have these people this non-capital class has too much money and needs to give it to their betters above them, and that's what the running backs don't matter thing is about. And so yeah, you're gonna that pressure is real though. There's gonna be like, well, you got to give it to the quarterback. The quarterback is what matters. Like no, it doesn't. The running back is the center. This is a running back based offense objectively.
It is. And, for what it's worth, as far as Niners props are concerned, McCaffrey to score 2+ touchdowns, you can get that at plus 210 over at DraftKings. Definitely like that. There's an interesting one also at FanDuel, I believe it under the Super Bowl specials tab, where if McCaffrey scores both a rushing and a receiving touchdown, I think that pays out plus 750. So I'm very interested in that.
Yeah, all those are pretty interesting to me. Another one that I saw, I can't remember if I want to say it was like plus 240 or plus 250, was McCaffrey scoring last touchdown from scrimmage. And I like that one. I think that one's viable for whatever way you see the game going, because it's like if the 49ers win, touchdown for McCaffrey being the last touchdown of the game, to put it out of reach, that would be one way that it happens. And even if it's the 49ers catching up to try to tie the game or do an onside kick, et cetera, McCaffrey scoring is the most likely outcome of any scenario where they score a touchdown, I think. And I think if it's the 49ers tying or getting within 3, it's like McCaffrey scoring in that situation is at least as likely as anybody else on the offense.
Well said. And actually, you undersold how good those odds are. Plus 350.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, it's but the interesting thing about that one to me otherwise is it again can go along with like a pro 49ers stack of McCaffrey stuff. It's like there's nothing in a lot of ways, if it's if the 2 touchdown one hits, then the last touchdown being to McCaffrey, I figure the odds of that have to go up accordingly too. So could get a nice payday out of something obvious like McCaffrey having a big game.
Right. And yeah, I think that really does work nicely for this one, because I think if the Niners have really any chance in this game, McCaffrey's going to have a ton to do with it. So given your expertise with corner personnel and matchups and where guys line up for their routes and everything, I do want to get into some proverbial tough matchups or softer matchups for this Niners group of pass catchers when it comes to attacking this Chiefs defense. Does this set up well for guys like George Kittle, or is it more like a downfield guy like Brandon Ayuk, or somewhere in the middle like a Deebo Samuel?
I think there's something there for Kittle if they want to go there, but I wonder if they might instead want to get Deebo and Ayuk going, and Kittle. If that right tackle McKivitz needs some help, then Kittle might get more chip blocking kind of work on the right side. And sometimes when he does that, he still gets open for the yards after the catch opportunity. Sometimes that's a deliberate setup of the play where they just kind of fake that he's blocking and they more so do a screen kind of thing to him. So those kinds of plays are always there for the 49ers if they want to run it. But if they want to set up like a play action look that's, getting Ayuk 15, 20 yards downfield, they might keep Kittle in to block at least for a beat on that play. And maybe, it's particularly given that the 49ers don't by design throw more than 27, 28 times a game. That little slight wrinkle in the game plan can kind of pinch Kittle out of the numbers that day, even though the big play is always there for him. It's like, just, are they going for something else? And to what degree of success do they have going toward that other thing? So, I think it would make a lot of sense for the 49ers to just run constantly with McCaffrey, even to the point that Mitchell and Mason get a couple carries. Because when you're really going run heavy like that, that's probably when you set up the play action to Kittle's benefit, where you're going like bigger formation, getting the bigger personnel on defense, and then you get Kittle off the play action. But yeah, I do worry if they're going play action to the receivers, it might be a play that kind of delays the release for Kittle. And obviously the design of the 49ers offense is pretty much impeccable. The sequencing that Shanahan calls the plays with makes the plays even more effective. And generally the look that Shanahan is going for will be there. So it's just rare that even Purdy gets to the third read, so if it's Debo, Ayuk, it's tough for Kittle. So that's why I have no idea how to call which two, but I feel like two of the 49ers receivers, including Kittle in that, term, they are set up well, but there's always that third guy on, because they don't throw it 30 plus times. That third one is rarely there in the game flow, even though like they could obviously make the play matchup wise and ability wise. So don't know how to call it. But if I had to lean one way, I'd say more so the receivers, because Debo seems to me like a way to further emphasize the run identity, further set the tone of the game. So I think they're going to go to him quite a bit in addition to running with McCaffrey. Like I expect McCaffrey to get like 25 carries, and I think Debo could get like 5 or 8 or something like that in this game. So I think it's going to be a Debo heavy game. But if Shanahan is trying to play like the high low tension, which I think he will, the high part is Ayuk. It's like Kittle can get there after the catch, but Ayuk is the one who stresses the defense vertically. So you make one play to open up another, and the McCaffrey Debo underneath opening up Ayuk vertically is kind of, if I had to guess, I would see it going like that.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by the Niners' ability to just sort of like make it a player X game. It's like, oh, this is gonna be it's Debo week. Oh, it's George Kittle week. Oh, it's Ayuk week, and you never can really like spot it perfectly but beforehand. But it seems like it's always at least one of those guys. And then beyond that, I mean, is there any other kind of lingering interest in any of these other pass catchers that you could see making a potential impact for the Niners?
Well, I think Jawan Jennings is a good player. The problem with him is that the 49ers are an I formation based offense. They would rather have Juszczyk at fullback than Jennings at receiver in the slot, and that's the very specific trade-off. So if Ayuk and Debo are on the field and Juszczyk is on the field, Jennings almost categorically cannot be. And
Right.
Juszczyk plays upwards of 30, sometimes 40 snaps. So it's tough for Jennings to obviously slot in, and the opportunity would be very narrow as a result, especially if he's playing as little as like 20 snaps, which is what the 49ers want. The 49ers don't want Jennings playing 30 plus, because if he is, it meant they had to stop running basically and start
Yeah, they're out
throwing.
of their base.
That's specifically where they don't want to go. But what I could see Shanahan doing, I could see Shanahan trying to get, so Trent McDuffie's really good, but I could see Shanahan trying to do some weird thing where it's maybe they run a couple times with Debo and Ayuk is actually on the bench, not because he's benched, but they're just setting up a look, and it's like Debo and Jennings could be the receiver, Jennings could be in the slot. If Snead is following Debo, which I kind of expect to happen, then you could run from that look, be it both Deebo Samuel or Christian McCaffrey, and then you could set up a play action kind of thing where I'm remembering, I think it was Alan Lazard made. I'm just remembering as a play this year, believe it or not, this year, Alan Lazard making a catch against Trent McDuffie. And it was kind of like, it was a play action kind of thing. And you could kind of see how a big receiver on McDuffie off of press coverage with the benefit of play action could actually be a really tough spot for McDuffie. And I don't know. I think there's a lot to be said for a game plan, a strategy of trying to make big plays that generally you don't have any business making against the best players on the defense, just to kind of rattle them. Like if McDuffie gives up like a 9-yard touchdown off of play action to Juwan Jennings, that's not something they see a whole lot, and if not that they're thinking this way, not that they would care, but I don't know, if you're on defense and you see McDuffie give up a touchdown, you have to be thinking like, maybe this isn't our day. This isn't the way it usually goes. And that was, I don't even know that was Jennings. That wasn't even Deebo. So that's a good way to kind of to help, rattle the defense a little bit, at the very least, make them a little more, make their balance be a bit off, make their rhythm be a bit altered.
I like it. A little psychological warfare. It's like we're going to score with this guy that plays 20 snaps a game. See how you like that. So I think that's a pretty good encapsulation on what to expect there when the Niners have the ball. Before we get to the Chiefs side of the ledger, we got a message from our friends over at Circa. Get ready for the ultimate big game parties at Circa Resort and Casino. Super Sunday is in Las Vegas this year. Watch the big game poolside at Stadium Swim's big game viewing party. Massive screen, booming game sound, plus a view of the pyrotechnic and visual effects throughout the game. Snag the best seat in the sun with day beds, poolside boxes, cabanas, and more, or touchdown at the world's largest sports book, Circa Sports, for the big game bash. 3 stories of football glory featuring a 78 million pixel screen. Book your seat with a variety of reservation options, including bottle service, open bars, stadium-style food, and more. May I suggest the sliders? They are delicious. Don't miss these legendary viewing experiences on February 11th. That's this Sunday, folks. The big game parties only at Circa Resort and Casino. Reserve today at circalasvegas.com. After doing that read about 20 times this year, I like to think that I got that one pretty close to right. We also got a message from our friends over at FanDuel. Tackle millions in prizes all playoffs long in FanDuel fantasy contests. If you're new to fantasy, there's no better time to get in on the action, because right now new customers get a 100% deposit match up to $100. Playing fantasy for huge cash prizes on FanDuel is both fun and exciting. Just draft your lineup and watch your team move up the leaderboard. Plus, on FanDuel, you can choose from full slate contests featuring multiple games, single game contests like the Super Bowl, season-long best ball contests, beginner-only contests, which are great for learning the ropes, and more. And when you win, you get paid instantly. Kick off the football season and the postseason with a 100% deposit match up to $100. That's free money, folks. Go to FanDuel.com to start playing for huge cash prizes today. Mario, before we get onto the Chiefs side of things, any DFS thoughts for this week on FanDuel? Any ideas on how you're going to craft that showdown lineup?
Well, I was kind of saying before, I was, for Kittle's sake, a little concerned, fantasy-wise only. He'll do a great job blocking if he needs to do it, but if he is asked with helping that right tackle at all, then it's making him start the race a little later than Deebo and Ayuk and whatever other route runners are on the play. So I'm probably not going at Kittle. I'm definitely going at Deebo, Ayuk if I can, fit the pricing. But my build would non-negotiably have McCaffrey and Deebo. The other things are more negotiable.
So as someone who plays the showdown slates during the year on Sunday night, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, any sicko ideas for your MVP slot?
Probably not any sicko ideas for the MVP slot. I mean, sometimes at a non-MVP slot in your roster, you might have to get some minimum price guy who, literally plays 10 snaps or something a game, because if he gets you 5 points, then you save so much money on the other remaining picks that you get the big payout that way. But as far as likely MVPs, I would be leaning just pretty much McCaffrey and Debo. Of course, Kittle, Ayuk, Purdy, any number of Chiefs, I guess that they could all take that. But I just think that McCaffrey and Debo are so utterly necessary for the 49ers offense, and I think they function against the most vulnerable parts of the Chiefs defense that whatever way the game goes, McCaffrey and Debo will have good games, and I think they might have, if there's only 2 good games in the 49ers offense, I just feel really confidently it'll be them. And then on the Chiefs side, things are just, Kelsey's obvious, Rashee Rice is somewhat obvious, but I feel like you're more likely to get guys like MVS kind of diluting with one 40-yard touchdown or something like that, diluting the price the point totals for the Chiefs guys. Whereas I think as workhorses, McCaffrey and Debo again don't. There's like no scenario where I can imagine them having their workloads harmed.
Yeah, I think I'm just gonna throw caution to the wind with the rest of my lineup a little bit, but I think McCaffrey as my MVP is going to be kind of like the basis of most of my builds on Super Sunday. So again, big shout out to FanDuel, and of course check out FanDuel.com. Get that deposit bonus match up to $100. All right, Mario, let's flip it over. Let's take a look at how this Chiefs offense is going to attack the Niners defense. So leading things off, where does this Niners defense have its strengths, and how could that fluster Mahomes?
Well, I think that the 49ers defense has mainly 3 distinct strengths. I'm calling the group some of the 4 down linemen one of those 3 though. So obviously that's Bosa, that's Hargrave. There's a few guys, Armstead, but I think of like that front 4 as totally solid, really excellent group, especially as far as one gap style defense, pass rushing, things like that. Fred Warner is the other one. I know Greenlaw's a totally good linebacker, but Fred Warner is a different category of like seam coverage ability, different player in general at linebacker. He's almost like a safety corner tweener at the same time. And again, the seam covering running backs and the flats, covering tight ends in general. Those are all things that he might be the best at in the NFL. So that would intersect with Travis Kelce probably quite a bit, and not to say that'll definitely happen. Sometimes they have Warner doing more like zone coverages rather than one-on-one things. But as far as a deterring strength against Kelce could go, as far as however many there might be, Warner is definitely like the first one on that list if that list exists. So that's concerning for the Chiefs. But other than those 2 strengths, the down 4 linemen, Fred Warner, I think the other is pretty much just Charvarius Ward, who is very good, but they only play him on one side. I want to say the left, and he's not a top 8, 10 corner in my opinion. Like he's like top 20, top 15. Totally good leadoff boundary corner, and he's good enough that he doesn't need help. They have leftover help to give to Ambry Thomas and Diomede Lenore who need it, and Ward is very good in that capacity. But as you saw in that Vikings game, if you can beat Ward, and in that game's case, it was somehow Jordan Addison that was whooping him. If you can overwhelm Ward, then you can make that whole pass defense start to get a little creaky, because like if they got to give Ward a little help, Ambry Thomas is a leak in the boat on the other side. So they tend to just not give Ward the help, and if he needs it, he just doesn't get it. But as far as this matchup goes, I don't know if the Chiefs have anyone who can really beat Ward. I guess Rashee Rice would be, the only candidate really, but I don't know. That seems like a pretty tough matchup. So if the Chiefs can't hurt Ward, then the task becomes like, can you hurt Lenore or Thomas, who are getting help? Because Fred Warner doesn't need any help in the seam. If Ward's not getting any help on the left side, you as a defense only need to help about half of the field at this point. And if Travis Kelce isn't beating Warner, you can see how it would kind of get to be a jam, because I guess at that point you're talking like Rashee Rice versus double teams, or Marquez Valdes-Scantling versus double teams, and that's just not that's not where you want to be if you're the Chiefs. So in that matchup sense, in the passing game, I feel like there are some tough, not just stalemates, but maybe kind of like dead ends for the Chiefs. So to me, the key to getting out of that all is actually Pacheco. And this is something at once you would look at the 49ers run defense this year and say, like, they look pretty good. I'm not sure that's going to work. And fair enough. But I think in the second half of the year, we've seen that the 49ers run defense, while good overall and situationally, they can be very tough. Certainly, they aren't well-rounded in specifically the sense that they're not really prepared to play like two-gap style defense where they hold up against physical, straight-ahead running games. Like Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, they need cover. They need guys like Kinlaw and Hargrave to keep the linemen off of them so they can run freely. Because if you get a helmet on them, especially Greenlaw, you can kind of just bury them. Like if you're a fullback or a tight end, and especially if you're a lineman, you can start knocking those guys around. And when Greenlaw and Warner are not free to roam, I think they get taken out of their game a little bit more. Like they don't want to take on blockers. It's not that they can't. It's just they're not really built to do it. They're built to track, to pursue laterally and through split gaps, but they're not built to hold ground against blockers or to shed blockers if they're taken on head on. So to me, Pacheco could be challenging to the 49ers. Like they're used to sort of on defense wrecking the offense, including the run game, without specifically making the effort to do it. They more so they have this method of just blowing up gaps, playing like one gap, with the exception of Kinlaw. They're all one gap guys. They rotate Kinlaw with that Penn State undrafted one, Givens. I can't remember for sure. You look at him, he's like 6'1", 275. All he does is just try to split gaps. And what they're banking on is like him to split that gap and you to hand the ball off, run into the guy he's splitting the gap, runs into your running back. But what happens if you split the wrong gap, or if you fail to split the gap at all, that guy's just getting rocked. Givens is just getting rocked out of the play. He's getting ragdolled. And then you have Pacheco with maybe a lead blocker against a linebacker who's 225 pounds. Greenlaw, I guess Warner's closer to 240. But that's the situation. If barring getting one-on-one against Ambry Thomas with somebody, the best thing for the Chiefs, I think, is to take blockers to Greenlaw and Warner and make them tackle Pacheco as many times as Pacheco can take it, honestly. Like if Pacheco can take 30 carries, now or never kind of thing, give him all of them. And I think what you want to do is tenderize those San Francisco linebackers, make them, put them in hell, make them not really want to go to do the next snap, leave them on the field a long time, get Bosa a little bit tenderized too, him and Hargrave. You want them to waste energy defending the run and still give up first downs. That's basically what you want to do to those guys. Like have them spend energy and give up first downs, then throw the ball after they lose some of the gas. And yeah.
So what might be like the threshold? Like let's say, for instance, the Niners build a 2-possession lead. Let's say they're up 10. How much do you think the Chiefs can, not necessarily will, but can, kind of stay committed to the run in that way? Because I think what you're like, the situation or the scenario that you're laying out where, you have a run defense that could have issues against a physical run game like the Chiefs, but how long can they realistically stick with that?
Yeah, falling down 10 points would certainly be challenging. I think they should, in that case, stick with it, assuming it's not like 8 minutes left or something where they'd be almost just screwed by the nature of the amount of time left. They should see it as, to me, it's just you approach it as, what does the defense not want us to do? And if it's late enough in the game and if the 49ers have enough of a lead, they will say, we want you to run the ball because the clock will go faster that way. But if it's not for the clock utility, I can't really see the 49ers saying, go in I formation with 2 tight ends and run a halfback dive right at Greenlaw. I don't think the 49ers want you to do that. I think they want you to panic and start throwing the ball so they can say, okay, the leash is off, Greenlaw, Warner, you guys can just start running crazy again. They're not going to run on you. So just go crack skulls, basically. Go run around and hit people, and that's what they want. That's where they're at their best. When you see the 49ers defense having success, it's because scenarios like that are occurring. So I think if the Chiefs aren't absolutely compelled by the clock, they should try to stick with Pacheco in that case, because I think it's just taking the game back to where the 49ers don't want to play it. However, Andy Reid, despite lately, to his credit, going extremely run heavy in a couple of those games, that's not how his career has gone generally. Andy Reid,
Right.
maybe more than anyone, short of like Mike Martz or some Mark Trestman style goofball, Andy Reid abandons the run quicker than almost any coach you can think of over however much time you want to think of. And again, the last couple weeks was very much the opposite, and I think it has a lot to do with why things went as well as it did for the Chiefs. I think that he sticking with the run the way he has lately, the way he didn't in the past, might be the difference between a lot of his early playoff exit with the Eagles and the way it's going right now for the Chiefs this year. So maybe Reid has changed, but I guess I don't know. This is one of those settings where I would expect someone to revert to type, if only from like the stress of it all.
The answer's sitting right in front of you, dude. Like I don't know how we're not just praising Matt Nagy right now.
I don't know. I think Nagy got kind of like a weird deal. Just seeing how stupid the Bears are run.
Just checking to see that the Bears fans are still listening.
Yeah, Bears fans. No one likes Nagy at this point. It seems, but I don't know. I think he's not the reason why things were as bad as it was with the Bears. It's like there's call it a curse, call it the owners. I don't care. The hateful force that keeps that team in prison hell is something that occurred that existed long before Nagy and rules Soldier Field even now. So yeah, but Nagy, I don't know. I would not be shocked if he's like a productive member of that staff. Although that's also, it's made a little easier to say that, just seeing that Bieniemy is just kind of some guy, some coach, not a big deal.
I don't know. I had a little salt rubbed in the wound where I think I saw a report that Bieniemy had driven up the Beltway to help the Chiefs with their game prep for the Ravens game. But I'm not bitter. I'm definitely not bitter.
He probably will be going back to the Chiefs, just like as the running backs coach or something.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. But we've dug into one way in which the Chiefs could attack the Niners. That might be the most optimal just in terms of strategy, but you do have Patrick Mahomes. You're going to use him. So, but saying, or assuming cleanish pockets and everything, Mahomes operating as per usual, how do you see this going for him?
Well, I guess as much as I described the passing game as a concerning matchup for the Chiefs offense, this 49ers defense did look pretty weak and passive against the Ravens at the very least. And I feel like there was some other game where they looked kind of just surprisingly flat in their coverage.
They didn't look great against the Packers.
Yeah, that must have been what I was thinking of. And I don't know. I feel like every time that the 49ers are struggling on defense, they're calling kind of passive, almost prevent style zones. They definitely were doing that against the Ravens. I don't know if it was like they were just hoping that keeping all the defense facing Lamar at all times would remove the rushing risk and therefore neutralize him as a passer at the same time. That clearly, if they were reasoning that way, that was wrong. I think if in general, like they need to keep like a forward lean, keep themselves in a chase, hunting kind of mode there. And if they do keep that kind of tone, I still think it's tough for Mahomes to throw, because if he doesn't have a lot of time, and if Charvarius Ward is shutting down, whatever, I guess Justin Watson, easy to imagine. I mean, Justin Watson's terrible. That's why you pick against the Chiefs, because they're going to give like 30 snaps to Justin Watson. But if Justin Watson is wasting a rep against Ward, then Rice, Kelsey, MVS might all get jammed up, because Warner against Kelsey, Rice against some corner and some safety, and then Valdez-Scantling just being easily neutralized in general. It's like, where would the ball go? Pacheco, maybe, but Greenlaw's running free. I don't really see it. I think one thing that they might want to try to do is just go to Valdez-Scantling deep a couple times. Like, you're not going to get a useful game out of Valdez-Scantling asking him to run a bunch of in routes and slants. So if he must be on the field and you must get some numbers out of him, I would say, like, you as the Chiefs want to keep Mahomes under something like 35 pass attempts, running as much as it takes to keep that variable in that range, and play action deep to Valdez-Scantling. Like that. I was saying how they have to get the win against Ward one-on-one, something that Addison gave the Vikings that the Chiefs don't obviously have. Maybe it's Valdez-Scantling. If he gives you one catch for 40 yards or something, that's enough right there, I think, to give you just enough juice, just enough reason to keep the safeties back. Maybe open up a little bit, laterally for Kelsey and Rice. But I just don't see, whatever way it goes, a scenario where Mahomes can throw the ball like 40 times. I think for very different reasons, I think what I said about Purdy and the 49ers offense is pretty much true about Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. Like if your quarterback is going over 40 attempts before the other in this game, I think that team is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I think that completely checks out. If they just have to completely abandon the run, which I think is going to be effective on a per carry basis here on Sunday, you get the Niners, effectively, to your point, playing how they want. And so much of football is doing what the other guys don't want you to do. So even if theoretically wanting Patrick Mahomes to throw it sounds like a bad idea in theory, over the course of 40 plus attempts, you're opening yourself up to some potential, bad things happening. So I think that's an interesting detail to keep an eye on over the course of this game. I think that kind of sutures up the Chiefs side of the equation. So, all right, Mario, let's get to our predictions. What do we see here?
I've been saying, so I'm just for the sake of not making a million predictions and barely getting one to hit. I'll keep saying 27-21 Chiefs, but it's total coin flip kind of thing to me, and I very much expect it to be well into the fourth quarter before we have any clarity on who's going to win it.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great game. Like you said, a one possession game. I'm on the other side of it. I think the Niners do it. I think they are the better team. I fell into this trap. I think last year with the Eagles, again, like we detailed at the start of the show, it's great roster on one side, Mahomes on the other, part two, essentially. Although the Niners stepping in this time around, I think the Niners find a way. I think they get it done. I don't know. Sometimes when you like we did earlier, analyzing the betting markets, it's I don't think the sports books are going to take a bath on Sunday. What I mean? Like I just have a hard time seeing them pay out 2/3 of the bets that this on Super Bowl Sunday, the most bet event in sports every single year, and that number only grows with more and more states legalizing and everything. So for me, I think the Niners do it. I'm not completely surprised under that premise that the line has moved a little bit towards the Niners, or I think it's interesting nonetheless. So I'm going to take the Niners, and I'm stuck on the 21 or the 20 because that's the difference in the over under, because I have the Niners at 27 as well. I'll go with the under. Give me Niners 27, Chiefs 20.
Blowout.
Yeah, just absolutely boat racing them by exactly one touchdown. So that's how I see it, for better, for worse. That's the side I'm on. I may or may not have rage bet the 49ers when I was up in Maryland once the matchup was set. But that was with the Niners only as 1 point favorites in that, or at that juncture. So it's a little different now. Let's grab a couple props before we head out. I think we can just keep this to a Super Bowl only show. We got a lot of off season to cover over the next few months. So we'll squeeze as much juice out of this game as we can. I have one that you and I being combine guys, the way that we are, this one is like a bug zapper, and I'm just flying right into it. That there's a market available on FanDuel. It might be available on some other ones that's tied to next gen stats. Fastest offensive ball carrier, and this also applies to kicks and punt returns as well.
They can rule on these? I would have figured there'd be like competing, our radar said this. Anyway.
There might be, but the FanDuel is specifically stipulating that these are tied to whatever NFL Next Gen stats has.
Oh, right. Okay.
So these are the two that I'm looking at, one from each side. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, fastest ball carrier, that pays out plus 1120. He's someone who did some digging on this earlier in the week. His average depth of target is 17 yards, so that implies that he's up to full speed basically by the time he gets targeted. Assuming that it's not just like a catch and tackle immediately, he could really be moving by the time that the ball is in his hands, and therefore I think that he's a reasonable bet. And I think among the Chiefs guys, he would be my obvious one. I don't think Mecole Hardman. I think Mecole Hardman might be just as fast, but
they like Justin Watson a lot more.
Exactly. Like I'm not sure that the opportunity is going to be there.
So I will say, John, if you're taking that MVS bet, you might think of it as a hedge against your Super Bowl score bet, because I think if Valdes-Scantling reaches like the highest mile per hour or whatever, it means that he caught the ball, and at that speed, it probably means no one caught him. So. I really do believe that just one big play out of Valdes-Scantling substantially tilts the game toward the Chiefs' favor. If you are going 49ers bet, I really do believe Valdes-Scantling highest ball carrier speed is a great little bet to get some money back if the first one goes wrong.
Here we go. Okay. All right. So I'm feeling even better about it. And then on the other side, for the 49ers, Brandon Ayuk, for the same bet is plus 730. I did some looking on the next gen stats during the playoffs, and among the guys on teams that advanced from conference championship weekend, he was the fastest recorded ball carrier, just over 19 miles an hour. That's moving. You can't do that in a school zone. So I feel like
lots.
Yeah. So if I'm doing one on the Niners side of the ledger, which I intend to do, these are my two guys for this particular market. So it's MVS plus 1120 for fastest ball carrier, Brandon Ayuk on the other side plus 730.
Yeah, and I would see that one as stacking with the 49ers Super Bowl pick, because again, if Ayuk reaches that sort of threshold speed wise, then he probably went quite a distance, and if Ayuk were not to win that award, that distinction for the 49ers, not that this would be a bad sign exactly, but I would think sooner mean it was like McCaffrey and Debo who were the fastest, i.e. they probably didn't have a 30+ yard play. But I think the 49ers can win that way just fine personally. But at the very least, if Ayuk does hit that play, they're looking really good.
Yes. If it is Debo or McCaffrey, it's not like a non-starter for their chances in the game, but that would suggest if either of those guys got up to top gear, they're probably going a very long way themselves. They are the two guys with the lowest odds, with both plus 590. I think beyond that, I detailed that I do like Christian McCaffrey to score 2 or more touchdowns. That's plus 250 over at FanDuel. 1 rush, 1 receiving touchdown for McCaffrey. That would pay out plus 750. Let's see. First team to record an interception, I would say Kansas City. That's basically just saying I expect Purdy to throw a pick and less so of Mahomes. And then one more that was a little bit interesting to me was Juwan Jennings to score. It's like a touchdown plus money line parlay. Juwan Jennings to score a touchdown, San Francisco to win. That's 10-1.
that Alan Lazard play, I think, really is open for them if they get close enough to this touchdown. Like a 9-yard touchdown catch for Jawan Jennings out of the slot against McDuffie off play action is somewhat easy to imagine. I can't remember if I mentioned it on the show. I know we mentioned the McCaffrey last touchdown one, but also I can't remember if we mentioned Kyle Juszczyk. I believe the numbers were half reception, over under half reception, and over under, it was either 4.5 or 5.5 receiving yards. I like the over in both of those cases, one play, obviously. And I think this is the kind of game where Juszczyk plays, 25, 30 snaps. So particularly if Shanahan is trying to get the Chiefs to bite on some look that looks like it's going to Kittle or McCaffrey, having the ball go to Juszczyk on like a screen on the other half of the field is something I can imagine pretty easily happening.
Yeah, I think that he's a bit of an X factor in this one. I could definitely, see him, and I think the great part about that bet and pairing them together is you just need one result. Like you just need him to catch the ball where he normally catches the ball, and bada bing, bada boom, you are cashing. And I think also that there are some first drive props, and I do wonder with what's been going on with San Francisco and their practice facility stuff this week, if they start a little slow. So I might sprinkle a little bit on the Niners punting for their first drive result.
Huh. Yeah, I have not the first clue of how to do bets like these. I feel like it gets so abstract in my head. I just end up, swinging at nothing. I don't know. I can't take a lean on that one. I in my head, in a world where everything goes bad and evil prevails always, I see the 49ers scoring on their first drive. So,
Okay.
like Brock Purdy's going to throw up. He'll fall down and his like pants will fall down, but he'll have enough time to pull them back up and look where his receivers are again, and he'll miss. It'll get tipped in the air, but George Kittle will catch it for an 80-yard touchdown, I think.
And the sort of like Looney Tunes, like the front of his tuxedo will like fly up over the front of his face.
So Purdy's tuxedo will fly up over his face. He won't get it back tucked in until the play is over, and he'll still throw a touchdown that's like 75 yards after the catch, after the tip.
The story of his career.
He won't know for like a good 30 seconds what even happened. Those things are so hard to get back into your waist.
Oh man, yes, starched up to into oblivion, man. But I do have a little bit that this is just these aren't team specific. This is just first drive of the game. So take that for what you will. But there is a market for it, of course. Over the last, let's say 8 Super Bowls, the first drive result starting from last year and working our way backwards: touchdown for the Eagles, punt, interception, field goal, punt, field goal, punt. So punt, the prevailing one. It's tough. It seems like to
did
score
the team?
Right out
sorry,
of the
was the one that scored on their first drive? Did they win the game?
That would be the Eagles, and they did not.
Okay, so you don't even want to score on the first drive. It's bad luck.
I think so. I mean, you can go back to the Devin Hester returning the opening kickoff, or to get more. This is a baseball one, but we weave into baseball analogies sometimes. But there was a Braves World Series game a couple years ago against the Astros where they could have clinched it at home. I think it was Game 5, and I think Austin Riley hit a grand slam in the first inning, and it was bonkers, bananas, pandemonium in Atlanta, and then the Astros actually ended up winning that game rather convincingly to send the series back to Houston. Then the Braves won the World Series.
That's John's lucky he gets to be like a backup Braves fan when the O's aren't rolling, so he's just like winning every year. But yeah, I do think I don't know, as much as as we just talked about the Eagles being the only one to score on their first drive, and then they got shown for the frauds that they are. I think the 49ers really do want to. They would be in trouble if they don't score on their first drive, I think. But I don't know. I guess that would also be the case for all those other teams, and some of them won. So I do think that's a one that we can put in your like hedge category, John, relative to the original pick. If the 49ers don't win, I think you'll at least get maybe the MVS one, and then this first drive punt to I don't know how much you put on them. I guess they could be a windfall, but at the very least they'll soften the landing.
There we go. I'm going to take that, put it in the old back pocket for this weekend. I think that's going to do it for us here on this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, the Super Bowl preview. Look at that. Nice, clean hour, breaking down exactly just one game. But boy, that means that we really dug in.
That's our shortest episode by 40, I think, 5 minutes.
Yeah, so I honestly don't even know what to do with the rest of my day, with my afternoon. I guess I could, start getting warmed up for bowling league later on tonight, but that's about
always
it.
Warm up. Yeah,
always got to get that shoulder loose. But that's gonna do it for us. For Mario Puig, I'm John McKechnie. Big thanks to our sponsors over at Blue Wire, over at Circa, and of course over at FanDuel. Everybody, enjoy your Super Sunday. And if you want to get some more of our content, get behind the paywall, get ahead of the game for baseball season, check out our free trial, rotowire.com/try. Enjoy the game, everybody.